But look, if you're a development team, I really hope that your metric for success is not how many races you win, because you're setting your athletes up to fail. I mean, you're setting up your program to be a little bit short-sighted. And the ability to sort of largely ignore the results or not place primary emphasis on those does come from having supporters and sponsors and partners that buy into that philosophy. When the reason that we have the success that we've had is because we've been incredibly disciplined about that. And I can do that because we have the stability and the history behind the program, where it's like, yeah, we are not going to be here for 3 years and then blink out of existence.
Welcome to the New England Endurance Podcast. This is the show where we dive into all the people and programs that are powering endurance here in New England. And today's guest is Tim Mitchell, the Technical Director of CCB Cycling Education Foundation, otherwise just simply known as CCB. This is an iconic team here in New England. Their roots date back to England from the 1960s, and they're the longest running elite team here in the US. I think they started in 1976, and we're gonna talk about that. So what makes CCB so unique is that the organization embeds education through athletics at its core. Every rider, for example, on the women's under 23 development team is required to pursue a post-secondary education. How cool is that? So today we're going to talk about how amazing CCB is, particularly the women's team, who has had some incredible results recently. So first off, welcome, Tim. How you doing?
Good. Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, and so before we start, y'all should know a little bit about Tim. I know him sort of from the local cycling scene here, that he's an incredible cyclist. He's a former ski racer with a deep background in exercise physiology and coaching. And I believe you used to coach the alpine ski team at Harvard. Is that correct?
Yep.
So we'll learn all about that. So Tim, this team is special to me. It's one of those teams where you're riding on the road and you see some folks in the CCB kit, sort of coming by, you see them in a distance, you actually stop and pause and you're like, oh, wonder who that is.
Yeah.
It's a special color team as well. You got the pink and the blue, super iconic. Some notables, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, who've raced for CCB over the years were Tim Johnson, Tyler Hamilton. We got the Keogh brothers. We got Emma White, Curtis White. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah. So Emma rode for what is now our junior team. So we had the team that many years ago for juniors used to be known as CL Noonan, which more recently was known as AP Junior. That's now the AP CCB development team. So that program, we sort of brought that program under our CCB Cycling Education Foundation umbrella a few years ago.
Well, very cool.
Yeah. But yes, we've had a lot of, and that's the same with the Keoghs. Like they all came up through that junior program. So yeah, some pretty special people. And yeah, I mean, I guess if you're around for this 2026 will be our 50th year.
Oh,
so
wow.
if you're around for 50 years, but the law of large numbers would suggest you'll end up with some pretty solid cyclists coming through.
Oh my God. So 50 years, 1976, this team gets established. Someone came over from England. Could you tell us a little bit just about the roots of this program and this team? Like, how did it come to be?
Yeah. So CCB actually stands for Cycle Club Basingstoke, which is a county in England. The short version of it is that a bunch of guys from the club in England emigrated to the US, Boston, North Shore area, which is still kind of where the heart of the club is. 1976, brought the jersey with them, started racing in the jersey. They were racers. And ironically, a lot of times you'll get like a cycling club and then people start to take it more seriously and you'll get like a race team that kind of comes out of that. Ironically, with CCB, it was the opposite. It was guys racing and then sort of just making friends and people wanting to be on the team. And then just sort of that had its own gravity. And the club in the US came out of that. And that was what was referred to as CCB International. And that's still the club. And there's still, a couple hundred members, Boston, North Shore mainly. But I mean, yeah, we've got, people scattered all over the globe at this point. And yeah, the team aspect, the race team has sort of had various guises over the years. It, for a while, it had a very solid junior team with, riders like Tyler Hamilton, Eric Kiter, like just absolute legends. Like
Yeah.
just amazing stratospheric talents. And then, yeah, Tim Johnson as well. He came through that part of the program. And that's when Steve Pucci, who is, we like to refer to him as the godfather of New England cycling. Steve is the biggest legend out of everybody, and deservedly so. He's done a ton for the cycling industry in New England, both in terms of as a shop owner. He also started Down East Distributors, and then running the team aspect of CCB, and sort of now he is kind of the overseer. I don't know if he actually has an official role. I don't think he has an official title within the club, but I mean it's Steve. Like it's just Steve.
Yeah.
So or more accurately, Pooch.
Senior advisor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Lord High Emperor in command. No, but yeah, Steve did a fantastic job with that junior team, and then it sort of morphed into an elite team over the years with some amazing riders. And I was lucky enough to come into the program in 2009. I started racing actually a little bit on the later side because, as you mentioned, my first sport was ski racing, and that took up a pretty big chunk of my life. And after I'd been racing for a couple of years, I was fortunate enough to make some connections, and most specifically to Amos Brumble, who was the team captain of CCB at the time. And Amos put in a good word for me with Steve, and ended up getting on the team right around this time of year, so November-ish. In 2009. And the team at that time, was sort of a bunch of guys that were kind of 20s, early 30s. And, like, how do you say, well, what's the best team in New England? That's such like a nebulous thing to try to pin down. But we're a very strong team.
You guys are an amazing team. Yes.
Yeah. So, riders like Amos, like I said, that guy's won so many things and raced in so many places. And he's done more races than like 10 people combined. But yeah, Amos, Dylan McNicholas, Sasha and Jaeger, the Belarusians that moved here. Those guys are legends in and of themselves. Cam Cogburn, who's, one of the best, hill climbers and stage racers in the US in the last however many years. And essentially, after a number of years of doing it that way, we sort of kind of looked at each other and we're like, hey, we're getting a little older. And the club was always very supportive of what the race team was doing. And there's still like a bunch of guys, there's a very strong like masters racing presence, guys like Jim Nash and Tyler Monroe and that whole crew has been kind of the lifeblood of the, of the program. And so we sort of were like, the elite team's getting a little older. And this sort of came at a time when a number of the development teams, the U23 teams in the US, were sort of starting to struggle or go away or move more to Europe and become a little bit more professionalized, which is both good and bad. Good insofar as it's nice for kids that want to take it seriously to have that avenue to do so. Also, the schedule that some of those programs had became a little bit prohibitive for kids that wanted to take their academics seriously. Yeah. And really the catalyst for kind of everything that exists now with the women's race team really actually started with that realization. And that was really brought into focus more specifically by Chad Young, he joined CCB when he was, I want to say Chad was 15 or 16 maybe. Mm-hmm. Dylan McNicholas found him on a local group ride, tiny, skinny little kid whose athletic background was competitive jump roping.
Wow.
So, like, there's a lot of jump roping in Chad Young stories. Yeah, Chad rode pretty well with us for a couple of years, and then rode on the junior team Hot Tubes for a year. And a lot of kids, went to sort of professional U23 teams or from that program. And part of the reason Chad didn't get that opportunity was he was going to be going to Colorado School of Mines, which is a incredibly academically rigorous program. Chad took his academics very seriously. And he was sort of lamenting to me that he felt like maybe he didn't get a fair shake in being considered by some teams because, he wasn't going to be able to just disappear for, 2 months during the semester and go to bike races. Yeah. And so, he sort of said, it'd be really great if there was a team that really supported, people with high academic goals. And, this is at the same time that I'm working at Harvard, which, not for nothing. I mean, that's like kind of all about if you're running a sports team at Harvard, that's kind of all about balancing academics and athletics.
Absolutely. Around what year was this that you're talking about?
That would have been early fall of 2013.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you saying that's sort of the genesis of this under 23 program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize it was going on for that long.
Yeah. So at the beginning, so anyway, Chad said that, and I said, well, I'll do you one better. I said, let's actually make it a requirement that you have to be that academically inclined, that you have to take that seriously. And of course, like, I just said this because I wanted to support Chad and I thought he deserved the support. And then I was like, okay, now I've said this. Now I have to figure out how to do this. So I sort of set about figuring out, okay, well, what can we do? Now, we didn't have like a ton of resources. We had good support from within the industry. And a lot of that was because of Steve and the reputation of CCB and the history. And that's all very helpful. And that in and of itself has been our currency for a long time. But, I sort of set about figuring out, okay, well, we don't want to be this like big, flashy, high budget, whatever, because we don't have any of that. So that's fine. And Curtis White was coming out of Hot Tubes at the same time. And he had a few options to race for a couple of those teams, but he was also taking cyclocross very seriously. And he's also an incredibly academically inclined individual. If you've ever spoken with Curtis, you'll know he's very, very well spoken and well thought out and just a great kid. Well, he's a dad now. So
It's all relative.
it's all relative. Yep. So those were my first two. I sort of pitched Curtis and his dad on it and said, like, look, you can use this as an incubator until you figure out what the next step is for you. The goal of this program is not athlete retention. It's to, give you a place to figure out what your next steps are and support you along that way. And that worked, and after a year or so, I think Curtis moved on to Rally, which is now, they don't have a men's team anymore, but it's Human Powered Health. Back then it was Kelly Benefits, and then it was, Optum.
So in the grand scheme of the ecosystem, the rider ecosystem, whether in New England or the US, it sounds like CCB, this under 23 development team, has this niche where you're supporting this post-secondary education. Are there other teams doing this now?
I would say that there are other teams that are somewhat willing to work around the academic calendar, and there's probably some teams that say they do it. And I think they probably have the intention to do it, but it is not a core principle of what they do. I mean, we're a nonprofit, right? We're a 501c3. It's actually literally written into our bylaws that any U23 athlete that's part of the program needs to be doing some type of a post-secondary education. Or if they complete that post-secondary education, like we have a couple of kids who are overly high achievers and are graduating early, like, okay, it's not like you're off the team, you graduated early like this.
Yeah.
We're going to penalize you for that. So I would say there are teams that try to be supportive, but there is no one who is doing it the way in which we are doing it, where it is literally woven into the fabric of the existence of the team.
Yep. So let me guide you through a few thoughts and questions. So we've established CCB as this very long running organization, which by itself is incredible because we've seen teams come and go, especially in New England over the years. Like every 3 or 4 years, they seem to pop up new teams or disappear. So we've established that. We've established that you still have a masters team. Okay, so there's a masters team. And then there's a separate under 23 women's team. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or is it also men's as well?
No. So it's the women's team. So, I mean, the sort of accelerated timeline, is like, okay, we had the men's U23 team. It started off with 4 riders. It started and this is in the 2014 season. I think it would have been the first season. So that would have been Chad Young, Curtis White, Kai Wiggins, and Corey Small. 3 of them have gone on to do, 4 of them have gone on to do amazing things. Unfortunately, Chad's no longer with us. And if I had to point to one reason why I'll try not to get emotional, but if I had to point to one reason why this program is still around and why it is such a passion project for me, it's sort of my way of keeping a piece of Chad alive, because he's literally the one that inspired me to, I was already thinking about it, but he's the one who gave me the nudge to, like, this is really what this needs to be about.
Oh, that's incredible.
And yeah. And so, people are like, I don't know how you keep it going. And I'm like, honestly, it's very easy for me. It's
Yeah.
like not even a choice. It's not even a choice. It's just like, this is what I need to do. And so anyway, yeah, the program grew over a couple of years. We had 6, 7, 8 U23 riders. We were continental for a couple of years, brought on a few non-U23s just to round things out because some of the racing that we were doing was higher level and we needed a little bit more mentorship as well. Started doing more and more in Europe. Found out racing in Belgium is awesome. It's like, it's the best. I have a soft spot for that personally. And then kind of shrunk the team back down from continental level down to U23 only again, men's. And then really that coincided. So 2019, 2020, that sort of coincided with the time when a lot of the World Tour teams started having their own U23 teams. And not that there isn't still a need for U23 men's development, but it sort of became a question of, is what we're doing a little redundant? And how do we do the most good with the time that we have? While the while the women's world tour and at the top end of the women's sport was getting better and better, there's really no existing development pipeline. And so that's kind of where the shift towards the women's program started. We started with a small 3-person multidiscipline team, which Lizzie was actually the first person on that team. And
Oh,
she's
wow.
still on the team now. So 2020 was her first year in the
And
program.
what's Lizzie's full name?
Lizzie Gonzalez. Then in 2021 was the last year that we had a full men's team, and we still had that smaller women's team. And I spoke with Lauren Leclerc, who was running the Levine Law Group women's criterium team at the time. And we shared a few sponsors. Lauren is from Massachusetts as well. She obviously knows CCB super well. And there was some really great stuff about her program and some really great stuff about our program. And so we were like, we should probably put our heads together. Wait, maybe we should just put these teams together. And so we merged the two programs. And so, yeah, the women now races CCB presented by Levine Law Group and still operates underneath the CCB Cycling Education Foundation nonprofit.
And how many women are on that team?
So this year we had 10 women on the team, 9 racing road, and Cecile Lejeune raced gravel. So she did the full lifetime series and finished fifth overall in the series and was 5th at Unbound, which was like a pretty stellar result for her first full year doing gravel. So that's kind of like I said, that's sort of there's some other stuff in there, but that's essentially the accelerated timeline of how we got to where we are now.
So how's the team structured? So you're the technical director. You have 10 or 11 riders. Who else is part of the organization that's helping you as like a support system?
Sure. Yes. Lauren's the lead, the sports director, and I'm the technical director. And I think honestly, I mean, there's so much bleed over between what we do.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I deal probably with more of the equipment side of it, and she deals with a lot more of the, sort of logistical and onboarding and sort of scheduling stuff. But I mean, in terms of interacting with the riders and the actual like directing stuff, you need more than one person for that anyway.
Is there a coach? Is someone coaching all the riders?
Yeah. So the way that works is the riders all have their own coaches, but we have a performance director, Bart Lipinski from Pro 13 Coaching. And Bart has coached some of our riders in the past. And he basically acts as a liaison with the coaches for each rider. So to be able to sort of keep up on like who's going well, who's kind of in a build phase, who's maybe dealing with some sickness. Not that the athletes don't communicate that, but it's also good to get it from their individual coaches as well. And we can sort of understand where each athlete is on their, kind of respect on their individual fitness curve coming into races, which helps us understand what we can expect from the riders and how we can best fold them into whatever the teamwork plan is for the race. So from a coaching standpoint, that's sort of how that works. We have Jitka Borowick, who runs Nove Yoga down on the Cape. And she does a lot of sort of movement stuff, mindfulness.
Oh, I love that.
Work with the girls, goal setting, not so much like performance goal setting in terms of I'd like to get this result at this race, but sort of in the grander scheme. And then we have a couple of mechanics that wrench for us. So Zach Maisely from Back in Action Bikes. Zach's been with the team for a number of years. He does a lot of our initial bike builds. He doesn't travel much because he has his own shop. Zach Foley, who's been a mechanic with a number of professional teams over the years. He's fantastic. He's got a massive wealth of experience. Marcus Orr, who also races in the club. So we do have some U23 men or some, like elite non-masters men who still race. I've been known to jump in every once in a while still. But yeah, no, there's still a bunch of guys in their 20s that still race. And Marcus is one of them. And he goes to Belgium with us every year. So it's amazing to have, a mechanic there for, 4 or 5 weeks. And it's great because the days that the women aren't racing, there's always a race for him to go and do. So it works out real well for everybody.
Have you ever had anyone on the team sort of come to you and say, hey, I think I want to quit college and pursue this full time, even though it's part of your sort of mission?
I would say no. I mean, we've definitely had riders turn professional, obviously quite a few, but literally none of them have stopped their academics.
Got it.
I mean,
Okay.
maybe some of them will take if they're focusing on the road, maybe they take a lighter spring semester and a heavier fall semester. Or if they're focusing on cyclocross, maybe it's vice versa. You take a lighter fall semester and a heavier spring semester. But no, I can't think of a single rider who's been like, hey, I just signed this pro contract. I'm not going to do school now. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that hasn't been the case.
Could you share a standout story of folks who have sort of left your ranks and graduated that sort of illustrate the awesome development journey that were part of CCB?
Yeah. So if I go back to, again, like sort of the origin story of it, if we look at someone like Kai Wiggins, and Kai came in from a athletic history of snowboarding. He was a phenomenal snowboarder, phenomenal. And he and I actually ended up going to the same ski academy, which I didn't know at the time, Waterville Valley Academy.
Yep.
And Kai was at Middlebury College when he started riding for us, and very academically inclined individual, one of the most thoughtful individuals I've ever met, ever. And he did very well, in our program, had a couple of top 5 results at nationals, won some big races, won Fitchburg when it was this is sort of after its stage race days, but when it was still a national level criterium. And he got a spot on a pro team, and some stuff ended up happening with that team and they ended up not continuing. And he had another option to go to another team, but he also simultaneously had an opportunity to work on hate crime legislation for the Arab American Institute in DC. Went down there, took a position, it was an internship or I can't remember the actual technical structure of the position, but he literally researched and wrote parts of the most recent hate crime legislation that was passed.
Oh, that's a cool story.
Yep. And then went to law school, and he is, I believe he and his partner are expecting their first child as well. So now I feel even older because Curtis is a dad and Kai's going to be a dad. So it's like, having CCB grandkids. So yeah, that's a phenomenal cyclist, but quite frankly, probably went on to do something far more impactful than cycling. So that's, I would say that's one, and then, you can look at someone more recently who is two jump out that are kind of more recent. So Betty Haas, who's from Providence, Rhode Island, and she won U23 nationals a couple of years running, and she got her engineering degree from University of Rhode Island, and she has managed to do some pretty cool internships. She did an internship at Princeton Carbon Works, build some of the nicest wheels out there, and
Nice.
developed a testing rig for their new hubs and stuff like that. And and she's making it work in a completely different way. She's doing some freelance engineering work, and she's going to be racing for a Spanish professional team next year in Spain. And I think she's going to either be going over on a French talent visa or the Spanish digital nomad visa, and
Nice.
still be able to do some freelance engineering work. And she's also doing some cycling coaching. So there's a completely different sort of way of folding in that educational background into the cycling thing. And then the most recent is Kat Sarkisov, who had a phenomenal season this past year. She was by far the best U23 woman in the U.S. In the elite race at nationals, she finished third. When Kristen Faulkner, the current Olympic gold medalist, like attacked on the big climb on the last lap, actually bridged across to the winning move and like went pull for pull all the way to the finish line, which was like pretty amazing. Because
That's incredible.
yeah, Kat's like she's like all of like 5 feet 1 inches tall, and she's a tiny human, but has a lot of fight. So she's actually at University of Maryland College Park. She is finishing her degree in computer science early. She's continuing to race with us this year and doing a lot of racing with the national team as well. And through one of our sponsors, American Systems, who came on board as a presenting sponsor for one race specifically last year, the Armed Forces Classic in DC.
Okay.
They are a very STEM-focused company. We have a lot of kids that are in STEM programs, computer science, engineering, that sort of stuff. And they are now hiring Kat and working around her schedule with CCB and the national team. And she is doing some actually very high-level classified work with her degree and like balancing it all. And like,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like super, super amazing. So yeah, those are a couple that jump out. I'm sure that I'm missing a few, but those are a couple that jump out.
That's okay. So how do you find these incredible women?
Yeah. I think part of it is because there aren't a ton of really great development programs. I think it's moving in the right direction, but I think we also had probably a little bit of an advantage because we had a really good framework in place.
Okay. Do people have to apply?
Yeah, we have so like all of our contact info is listed on the USA Cycling website for like the domestic elite teams. We have our own website. It's pinkwatts.com.
Okay. Love it.
And yeah, yep. We certainly do our own scouting, and it's not hard to like keep your eye on, results from juniors that are coming up. But I think also it's important to remember that, while there's a bit more of a defined development pathway on the men's side of the sport, on the women's side of the sport, women are entering the sport and being socialized into the sport at different times and different pathways. And so like, for example, we had Kendall Chase on the team a few years ago, and she's a former Olympic rower.
Wow.
And she was like, when she finished, after the Tokyo Olympics, she's like, okay, I'm done with rowing, but I need to do something. So she picked up the bike, and through some various connections, she ended up finding a few people on our team, including Betty, because they're sort of they were in the same area, and got connected with our team. And then we ended up taking her on the team. Unfortunately, she ended up with a concussion, and then also had to have her labrum in her hip reconstructed after, it's an overuse rowing injury.
Yeah.
So you have people coming into the sport in all different ways. So I think you have to always keep an open mind and keep an eye on results and listen and talk. And the thing is, if you are genuinely invested in moving the women's side of the sport forward, you're going to talk to people. You're going to have these conversations. You're going to be interested, and you're going to want to look at results. You're not going to just look at who won the pro race. You're going to actually be interested in what's going on in your cycling community, and you're going to look at the results from the Cat 3 race or the Cat 4 race or whatever, because that matters. Like that's the thread of like the fabric of the community. It's not just the top end. So, so some of it is, just straight up scouting. And the national team will also sort of be like, hey, I think this rider could be a good fit.
How many folks do you have on the national team on CCB?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of an odd question insofar as like nobody is on the national team.
Okay.
You are invited to race certain races with the national team. It's not a named team for the duration of a season. So in 2024, we had, I think, 4 out of the 6 riders for Tour de l'Avenir, which is the U23 Tour de France. So Tour de l'Avenir Femme, 4 out of the 6 riders for the US were CCB riders.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
This year it was just 1 rider. Every year it sort of varies, but I think we had 2 or 3 riders doing national team stuff this year. Next year, my guess is it's probably going to be 3 or 4 riders doing national team stuff. So, I would say like a little under half of our roster will be doing, we'll do something with the national team, on an average year. That's probably about right. And I work a lot with Tanner Putt on that, and he's done a fantastic job running the national team. He oversees all of the road national team, not just like women's. And Rachel Hederman is typically the director on the women's side, and she's got a massive amount of experience over the years. I mean, she directed the men's team from the old United Healthcare team at like World. I mean, she directed like Milan San Remo.
Oh,
like
that's incredible.
Yeah. So our girls that get to race with the national team are very fortunate to be able to have experience from people like Tanner and Rachel, and we've got a few of our juniors from the AP team that are starting to be involved with the track national teams. And the person who's in charge of that currently is Gavin Mannion, who former CCB rider.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, we're all over the place in the sport.
So let's talk a little bit just about results real quick. I mean, are there some results? I feel like whenever I open cycling news in the last couple of years, I've seen some article that references a CCB rider. Are there some results that stand out that you're particularly proud of for the team?
Yeah. God, there's a lot.
Did someone win the 2025 Pro Road Race or come in second?
So Kat Sarkisov was third at this past year's US Pro, not the U23 race, the elite race. So yeah, she was third in that race, which, I mean, that's an automatic qualifier for world championships. So that was pretty cool. Cassie Hickey soloed from lap 2 in the U23 crit. She soloed the entire race and won. That was pretty awesome. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Love to see the watts on that.
Yeah. She's a small individual, but yeah, she did some pretty good power. So that was pretty good. We didn't win the TT this year, but we'd won, I think, 3 out of the last 5 or something like that. 3 out of the last 5 years before that in the TT, and then the year before that, Lizzie won the U23 cyclocross nationals. And the girls excel, in the collegiate racing as well. I mean, obviously they're wearing their collegiate jerseys, but yeah, they won probably 4 or 5 collegiate national titles every year as well. So yeah, those have been pretty standout results. Winning a national championship is fantastic, or more recently Lizzie winning Pan Am's is amazing. But there's a danger in looking at individual, like, single results. I think it's more about the process than it is about the outcome. And that's something that we're very, very, very cognizant of. Winning is great and it should be celebrated. But look, if you're a development team, I really hope that your metric for success is not how many races you win, because you're setting your athletes up to fail. I mean, you're setting up the program to be a little bit short-sighted. And the ability to sort of largely ignore the results or not place primary emphasis on those does come from having supporters and sponsors and partners that buy into that philosophy. When someone is interested in supporting the team, or when we're going out looking for that, I tell them straight up, like, look, if your metric for success is how many races that we win, and that's what you're looking to get out of this, like, this is not a good fit.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to say that, but it's true. Because I don't really want partners that come in for a year and then are gone. Like, buy into the mission. The reason that we have the success that we've had is because we've been incredibly disciplined about that. And we're going to continue to be incredibly disciplined about it. And I can do that because we have the stability and the history behind the program, where it's like, yeah, we are not going to be here for 3 years and then blink out of existence.
Well, speaking of that, like, where do you envision the program to be? Let's say in 5 years, do you envision more of like an international presence or a bigger team?
I guess what I would say is, I've had like a lot of people based on the success that we've had. Oh, you're gonna, like, try to like make it a pro team or this, that, or the other, like, oh, what do you want? And like, nope, I have absolutely no interest in that. None, zero. We want to do what we're doing now, but do an even better job at it. We want to be the absolute best at developing talent and fostering and nurturing that and growing the sport. And that sounds all like really cliche. I get that.
That's a fantastic answer, though.
Yeah, but it's true. It really is true. This is like my niche. This is what I've figured out that I am pretty decent at. And it's honestly, it gives me like a greater sense of fulfillment than I ever got from racing my bike. And I mean, I was fortunate enough to, I got to like win a bunch of races and do some pretty cool stuff on the bike. And that's nice. I have never been more happy than
Wow.
when the team succeeds. Like, yeah, it's just not even close. It's not even close. It's a completely different feeling. And so, yeah, no, I mean, we literally want to do exactly what we're doing, but we just want to do it better. And I do think that probably means spending some more time in Europe. It is nice to see some races coming back in the US. Philly International is back on the calendar. I'm hoping and that we'll be able to secure an invite to that. I'm fairly confident that we will, but at the end of the day, it's an invitational race, so we have to continue to put our best foot forward. Maryland Cycling Classic is moving from 1 day to 3 days.
Oh, good.
Which is pretty cool. Tour de Gatineau continues to be a really strong race. Jumbo Visma women came to that race this year, which is like, yeah, that was a little bit of an eye opener. But hey, every once in a while, you need to get your teeth kicked in. You got to find out what that top level is. That's how you got to set your bar. That's how you got to know, like, I'm here with my level. This is where I need to be. So, you don't want a steady diet of that. And I think that that's something that we've done really well is we have 3 levels of racing we consider, and those levels are, sort of different for each person, but essentially the way that it breaks down is you've got your learn to win level, your sort of local, regional, super regional, whatever, where it's like, if you go and execute, you can win, but you have to understand how to shape the race. You are sort of dictating more. Then you have your kind of learn to compete level, which is your sort of higher level national, lower level international stuff, where it's like, if you as an individual and you as a team execute really well, you can be a factor in the race. It's not like a conclusively you're going to win if you do this, but it's like you're in the mix. And then there's your reach races, which is like, world championships, or, that's some of the super high level stuff with the national team where it's like you are racing over your head and you're equal parts in survival mode and also trying to race aggressively, because you gotta know, sometimes you gotta know and experience that next level in order to raise your game to that next level.
Well, just for a frame of reference, like, are you looking to race against folks like Kendall Ryan, like on a monthly basis to see what races she and her team are doing? And
no, I mean, we already do that. I mean, that's not like Kendall is, primarily a criterium focused rider, and she's phenomenal at that, obviously. We do a fair bit of criterium racing, whether it's part of a stage race or, some of the standalone ones like Armed Forces Cycling Classic, Tulsa, Bucks County. And in literally all of those, we were on the podium this year. So, I mean,
wow.
we do them, we compete against them, and sometimes we beat them.
That's awesome.
But I mean, we're certainly not a criterium team specifically.
Okay.
I think it's a skill set, and you need to be able to do it. And there's a lot that you can gain from criterium riding that you can transfer into the larger sphere of bike racing. And it's the same where, like, why we go to Belgium and race Kermesse races, and why we do training camps in like Calpe, Spain, to like be able to go ride 30-minute climbs, 40-minute climbs where, it's like, just can't really do that here, especially not in January in New England.
Well, can I ask you a semi-controversial question? I'm just curious, because you've been racing a long time, and what are your thoughts on the current state of New England road racing and the fact that there just aren't as many races as there used to be?
I think that it's a really good thing that there are still some very passionate people out there, because otherwise we'd be in an even worse spot than we currently are.
So you're grateful for what we have.
I'm grateful for what we have. I think that there's an okay number of criteriums. I think that there is not an acceptable number of road races or circuit races. We try to do our part depending on what our race calendar is, we have put on races. My primary focus has to be on the team. And if I have enough bandwidth to do it, Amos and I have put on the Brumble Kermesse a number of years. And we ran a really awesome circuit up at Loudon, New Hampshire National Speedway a couple of years ago, which everybody really loved. It was much harder than people thought, which, to be fair, if you know me, you probably should have anticipated that. So yeah, it was awesome. That was good. I do think that, it's funny. I had a discussion with some of the people at USA Cycling a number of years ago. And I think that you see some of the disappearance of races and I think it coincides with a couple things. One, USA Cycling got rid of the requirement that all registered clubs had to promote or, partner promote an event. And it also came at a time when clothing companies started dropping minimum order quantities on getting custom clothing. So you
Interesting.
had a lot. Yeah, so you had a lot of these,
Yeah.
and that's not like a bad thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was an unforeseen aspect. So you had a lot of these larger clubs like like NEBC,
Yeah.
right? Like New England Bicycle Club,
That's
like,
where I started.
yeah, like massive club, like
Yeah.
did so much. And over the years, it's sort of like, people kind of broke up into their smaller, like little groups and made their own teams. And it's like hard to put on a race when you're a team of, or a club of 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But when you had some strong leadership in a larger club, different story, far easier to pull off running some of those events. And we used to do, CCB used to do 2 races a year. We used to do the Topsfield Circuit race,
I remember that.
which the bridge ended up going out on, that was out for so many years. And then the field where they do the parking is not a field. So it's like logistically not possible to do it anymore. And then Marblehead eventually just refused to permit it because they just didn't want us on the road on Marblehead Neck anymore.
Oh,
It was
that's
just really unfortunate.
that was my first win as a 4-5.
Nice. Yeah. You got to go over you make the right turn and you go over we call it the Marbleberg. You get you go over the Marbleberg and then you get the little downhill run into the finish.
Yes, yes. I always wondered why that race sort of disappeared.
Yeah, no, that's why. Yeah. The last year we were supposed to have it, we had that massive storm and there was so much wind and everything that sand blew off of the beach and literally buried the house that we would normally use for registration in the parking lot. And then after that, the town just wasn't, they just weren't feeling it anymore, which is really unfortunate.
That's too bad.
Yeah, so we ended up running, we did a couple of crits at Ninigrit, and then we put on the Kermesse down in Westerly, Rhode Island, and then, the circuit race. So, we try to do our part, and like, look, if I had the time to do more, I certainly would. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, if you're interested in putting on a road race and you want any info on how to do it, like, I am an open book. I'm more than happy to pitch in, give you ideas, show you what our template was, for that. And that honestly goes the same thing for teams. I'm always very happy. Like if there's like another women's development team that comes along, like I don't view that as competition. Like that's like, we need that. Like,
Yeah.
I think the problem is people think about like racing. And I think unless you're at the world tour level, like the highest level where the results really truly matter, you don't want to be thinking about competing against other teams. You want to be thinking about competing with other teams and with other people. And I think that's like a fundamentally different mentality because, again, cliche city here, like a rising tide, raises all boats, right? And so it's like if everybody is sort of pulling in that same direction, it makes the sport better. And so to get back to your question, you're like, yeah, New England racing, like the criteriums that exist are good. I do wish there were more road races. Huge props to Gary Kessler for continuing to run Green Mountain Stage Race.
Absolutely.
Like that's like massive.
Yeah.
I would love to see more. I think some of the hidden gems that people don't realize from a road race standpoint.
That's one of my questions. Yes. What are some of the hidden gems?
Well, I was going to say that. So the ECCC collegiate race weekends, oftentimes they usually have a road race, and oftentimes they have regular USAC fields. Like people
Really?
don't pay attention to that. They don't
Yeah.
look on Bike Reg. They think, oh, it's collegiate. Like I can't do that. It's like, no, like open the page, click on the link, open the page. Like half the time
cool.
There are a couple of USAC fields and they oftentimes have some of the best road race courses. And because their stuff is run in a very volunteer centric, bare bones sort of way, the registration fees are normally pretty reasonable. There are events where the entry fees are much higher, but also the production value is a lot higher. So like if you look at like Dieter Drake's Battenkill, it was awesome to see Dieter bring that back this year. And like, the registration fee is higher, but the prizes are good. There's a lot more production value around it. It's an incredibly complex course. And to Dieter's credit, he always has a ton of course marshals and a ton of police out there. And those things all cost money. And it's up to each person to decide if it's worth it for them to do it. But like, I really think the hidden gem are the collegiate, the USAC field in the collegiate race weekends, because oftentimes it's actually a pretty interesting road course, because it's the collegiate kids that are designing it, and they're like they want to do something cool, and
What's your favorite route or location to ride in New England?
Oh, that's actually, I have 2 ways to answer that. There's 2 answers. Answer number one is to ride from my house in Ashland into Boston, and then usually
Really?
meet up with some people there, and then ride south out of the city, past Blue Hills, down to Miles Standish, loop through Miles Standish, go over the Sagamore, ride a lap of the canal path, and then ride the Route 6 frontage road out to the bike path. Keep going all the way out to Hyannis, and then you just basically all through Hyannis all the way out to the end of the bike path. And then you ride past the Beachcomber, over through Truro. You go up and down some of the hills in Truro. It's actually a little hilly there, which people don't realize.
Absolutely.
End up in Provincetown and do a lap through the Dunes Park.
Yep.
Then get some fish and chips and take the ferry back to Boston.
So you're talking about the Cape in a Day ride, basically, except with
the Cape in a Day ride with a little bit of a bonus on.
Yeah, it sounds like a 200-mile ride.
It's not quite 200. I think when I do that one, it's about 160 or 170. So yeah, it's long.
I did that ride last year with the BRI guys, with Kyle Smith and Colin, and that was fun.
It's an amazing ride. The other one is what I call the Super Loop. And the Super Loop is you start in Lincoln, New Hampshire. You go north on 3. You hop on the bike path.
Through the Notch?
Yeah, you go up through the Notch. Then you descend down towards Franconia. Before you get there, you make a left. You go by the Horse and Hound Inn. You pop out on Easton Road and you go up Lafayette Road, which is this, I mean, it looks like it should be the finishing climb from Flesh Wallon. And that takes you out to the top of Sugar Hill, and the view is amazing there. Then you descend down, ride through Bethlehem, out 302 past Breton Woods. You descend down Crawford Notch, make a right, go up and over Bear Notch, make a right, go up and over the Kank, and then descend down into Lincoln.
Oh, nice. 100 miles.
Those are my two all-time favorite rides in New England.
Oh my God. I can say I've done both. That's awesome. All right. This has been a fantastic discussion. Is there anything else we should know about CCB before we say goodbye?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like I said, I think we've covered, a ton of it. I think it really is. I think that the thing that I just wanted to stress is that it's really not just about CCB. It's about cycling, and it's about the community, and it's about development. And I just can't encourage people enough to stay process focused in the sport, even if you're not racing.
What do you mean by that? Stay process focused?
Yeah, we have so much data, and it's funny, right? I'm an exercise physiologist, so by education, so I get the data side of it. I really do. But you've got Strava and Zwift, and stay present in the moment. Unplug the power meter. Go ride your bike and understand how lucky you are to be doing that, and be present in the moment, and go ride with good people, have conversations, and like I said, unplug. For years, none of that stuff existed. And so I think that the data and the online aspect is cool because it has created a different kind of connectivity, but I think we've lost that sort of more authentic, original type of connectivity in the sport with people, with each other. And I would love to see clubs come back and be stronger. I don't want to see CCB or Minuteman, really being some of the only bigger clubs left. I would love to see more of that.
Yeah.
And women's sport in general, not just women's cycling. It's amazing. And, to have the women that we have who have really bought into that philosophy of being so process oriented is amazing. I mean, I don't have, my wife and I don't have kids of our own, but I feel like I have 10 daughters. That's it's super, it is, again, super cliche, but it's genuinely how I feel about it. And I think a lot of that came from my experience and seeing how supportive the CCB club was, and how very quickly I understood that it was more of a family than it was a team. And I just hope people can get as much out of the experience as I have. And it's it's just such a cool thing that, I really do genuinely hope that people can keep that in mind in the larger sense, and just have cycling be additive to their lives in the right way.
That's great advice and super inspiring. So, thank you so much for sharing the CCB story from the very beginning and how the women's team is doing. It's an incredible program. I love that you guys are in New England as well. So, big thanks to Tim Mitchell here and the CCB Cycling Education Foundation for sharing the entire story of CCB. Check them out at pinkwatts.com to learn more about this education through athletics philosophy. You can also check them out and follow the women's team on Instagram at CCB Women's Cycling, which we will tag them on our Instagram.
Correct. Yep.
So until next time, get out there, keep pushing your limits, drop some hammers, and enjoy the beautiful terrain of New England. Thank you.
Thanks.